Hi, my name's Dana. I'm from Group 3, and today we're going to be presenting our Communications Theory project on Chapter 7. So I'm going to be giving the introduction on Chapter 7. Alright, so Chapter 7 basically talks about communication and relationships, the importance of friendships to society, and how we form relationships with friends, family, romantic partners, and coworkers. So my section is 7.1. It talks about the foundations of relationships. And in this part, there were two types of relationships, personal and social. So personal relationship meets emotional, relational, and instrumental needs since they are intimate, close, and interdependent. Some examples are a best friend, partner, and immediate family. A social relationship lacks the closeness and interdependence of personal relationships. Some examples are a coworker, a distant relative, and an acquaintance. Also, another category of defining a relationship includes voluntary and involuntary. So, a voluntary relationship is something you're in control of, meaning, for example, a significant other. You have the option to start that relationship, you have a choice. Versus an involuntary relationship is something you're not in control of. It's a relationship that just happens, and an example of that would be like a neighbor. Stages of relational interaction. So this portion right here, it talks about how important it is to communicate with others, because in that way you find out how related you are in terms of like what are some things you have in common, or what are some things that you don't have in common. Conflicts might arise, or you guys might complement each other in certain ways, in certain aspects. So definitely, communicating with others helps you understand how compatible you are with someone. How you relate to someone defines your relationship. And in this part right here, relational partners, normally it's the two people involved in the relationship. So the following 10 stages are going to describe the types of interactions in a relationship. And these stages are a model of relationship development. So the first stage is the initiating stage. People analyze their encounter and greet or present themselves. So, for example, it depends on what it means by analyzing their encounter. Is a person could see whether if it's a stranger or a close friend. So, for example, you're at a grocery store and you see someone, you're going to approach the person differently depending on if the person was a stranger or a close friend of yours before presenting yourself. The second one, experimenting stage. People exchange information and move from strangers to acquaintances. That's pretty self-explanatory. The third stage, intensifying stage. People indicate they would like or are open to more intimacy. 4. Integrating stage. A sense of interdependence develops when two people's identities and personalities merge. So when you're in a relationship with someone and when you get closer to them, you tend to do more things together, like open a joint bank account or start using different words, like different pronouns. Instead of saying your friends or my friends, you might say our friends. Bonding stage, number 5, includes a public ritual to announce formal commitment. So a few examples of that would be like a wedding ceremony or a civil union, a commitment ceremony, something like that, to kind of like create that symbolic act of bonding. 6, differentiating stage. An individual differences that reverts the integrating stage back to my and I. So this is like a separation of the two individuals because of certain differences. So an example is an unpleasant discovery about the other person's past, a personality clash, or other values that don't agree tends to separate the individuals. So instead of saying our, now it's kind of like my past, my history, and things like that. Number 7, circumscribing. Communication decreases and certain subjects become restricted as individuals verbally close themselves off from each other. So basically, you just don't want to talk to the person about a certain topic or whatever the case may be. Number 8, stagnating stage. Relationship is at a standstill as individuals basically wait for the relationship to end. Number 9, avoiding stage. People signal they want to end communication by avoiding either directly or indirectly. So an example of avoiding directly would be just telling the person up front, like, hey, I don't want to talk to you right now. Or an example for indirectly avoiding would be like making up excuses to not have to talk to the person. Number 10, terminating stage. A process that ends a relationship due to external or internal factors. So an example of an external factor would be a geographical separation. So maybe there's two people and in a relationship and they have to go off to different universities and they can't do long distance. That's an example of an external. And then an internal factor could be maybe a difference in or a change of personality, values, perspectives that kind of has just weakened the bond in that relationship. Social contract theory. So this theory basically is a weighing of the costs and rewards in a given relationship. So obviously if there are more costs than rewards, it can lead someone to see a relationship in a negative way because it's too much to invest in that relationship. So what you want is the costs and rewards to balance each other out, which usually leads to a satisfying relationship, a healthy relationship. So commitment and interdependence are key interpersonal and psychological dimensions of relationship that is related to this theory. However, you have to be careful that this is not a tit-for-tat accounting of costs and rewards, because if you think about it, this isn't something that you're supposed to be checking constantly. It's too much work and it's not healthy if you're constantly weighing the costs and rewards in a relationship, because it's going to be too overbearing for your partner. So this theory you want to put to use before you make the decision of starting a relationship with a friend or with a family member, maybe like a closer family member, or even with your significant other. This is when you would put theory into check. What are my sacrifices that I have to make, and what are the benefits? Also, if you're going through a conflict in a relationship, maybe that's something that you can also use, is kind of like weighing out the costs and rewards. That's when you would use this theory.